All right, let's get going. So this is Yoga and Trauma Recovery, 8 Essential Themes. So what I'm going to cover here, I basically distilled down from questions from students like you over time, and really tried to create the new course to respond to those questions. So what we'll cover today is the 8 most common questions, and I will give you some answers as well in the field, the budding field of trauma and yoga. And then I'll cover how these connect to the themes of the updated Y4T online training program. So many of you on this call have already enrolled in it. You've been in the program. You've already done earlier iterations of it. There's a very similar structure with some significant changes, and I'll explain those. And at the end of the call, I'm going to answer 3 questions I've been getting all summer and give you some responses to those as well. So our first question is, how do I do this work and keep it sustainable? I've been getting this question forever. I've been asking myself this question for a long time as well. And my simple answer to you is let yourself grow with it. So our first week in this new training program, rather than jumping right into material about trauma, we're going to talk about how to build a field of health. This is a term I use a lot of the time, and sometimes people ask me, what do you mean by that? And I really mean that rather than treating a problem, and we could all agree, I think there are plenty of problems and challenging circumstances in the world, but rather than treating a problem, we're actually building wellness within ourselves, within our offices, within our yoga studios, our communities, whatever program we run. We're orienting ourselves towards the solution. So this is different than, for you therapists on here, different than solution-focused therapy. Like brief solution-focused therapy is very sort of structured around one specific targeted issue. This is about expanding our way of being, our way of living, to focus on health. So my short answer to how to keep it sustainable is to continue to grow and to focus on health. And in the first week, we will break down how to do this and how to succeed in an online course, because there are some, unique challenges to doing online work, mostly kind of time management and those types of things. So I'll address some of the solutions there and ways that people find success. Question number 2 is, how do I know if what my student or client is experiencing is trauma or is related to trauma? This one comes most often from yoga teachers and from therapists who haven't had training in trauma. Maybe they're trained in working with anxiety and depression or offer CBT or DBT. But if you haven't had training in trauma, and some mental health programs don't have that, or I think don't have enough of it, it might be hard to spot. So this is our week 2. This is all about understanding trauma. So understanding what that means. It's become more popular. I think that's in general a good thing. But then you have people throwing around terms like, oh, that was traumatizing. And I think it's important for us to think critically and think, well, was it traumatizing or was it embarrassing or overwhelming in a different way than trauma is? Or was there some other either mental health thing at play or some other emotion? So after this lecture, you'll have a thorough understanding of post-traumatic stress, complex trauma, and you'll be introduced to even some other more advanced examples and manifestations of trauma that could show up definitely in a yoga room, absolutely in a therapy office, and in therapeutic programs in general. So my answer to this is just observe, learn, and observe. So once you, someone who took an early version, I think Maria in 2015 who took this course, said, once you take a training like this, you just have more empathy for people in general. And I think when you have that lens and that context of trauma, you see things through, oh, this is why they might be doing that, or oh, that's how they might be reacting. And it's much easier, especially if you're doing your own work, to reflect on that and to connect with it in a human way. So that's why there's this movement within trauma-informed yoga, the small budding group and leaders in the field, where we're talking more about, I like to call it human-informed yoga, but person-informed, people informed, human informed. And that's part of also the progression of moving away from focusing on trauma itself. I'm still using the word trauma and trauma informed because I think it's still a young field, so it's early to push forward even beyond that. But I encourage you to take on this concept of human informed yoga, of this is just biology. This is just biology, psychology, the reality of human beings and how we're designed neurologically, but also what our needs are as people. Question number 3 is, how does the body play a role in healing? So yoga, which we'll get to next, can have a huge body focus, and we will get to that in the next lecture of how yoga postures, how pranayama can respond and promote healing. They can also be triggering, note that, but how they can promote healing. So how does the body play a role in healing? And my short answer to this is, well, the body holds the truth. There are books out there about trauma, The Body Bears the Burden, The Body Keeps the Score, that basically have this as the title. Now I said holds the truth instead of keeps the score or bears the burden, because it also holds a lot of resilience, right? And because it's kind of a reality of nonverbal communication. Someone might say, I'm not tense, and you're not going to believe them because their shoulders are up to here, unless they're like, I'm just really cold. Then you may maybe have some other concept for it, right? But we as human beings are consistently picking up on other people's nonverbal communication, even like really subtle facial movements that we don't, maybe we're not cognitively aware of, or we're not describing in words, but communicate the state of someone's nervous system, communicate emotion, communicate perceived threat, right? So that's like when you meet someone and you're like, oh, they were okay, but something was a little off and maybe you can't quite describe it. Well, their body's communicating, your body's communicating. This is where my background in interpersonal communication and now interpersonal neurobiology comes in really handy. So in week 2, we talk mostly about the nervous system and somatic psychotherapy and some really basic principles in somatic psychotherapy that are very powerful and come in very handy. Okay, so that's week 2 and question 3. Moving on to question 4. Oh, wait, was that week 3? Oh, see, I'm going to confuse this. I apologize in advance because by changing the first week 1, to a foundation of health, I have to rewire my brain. So that was week 3, the nervous system and somatic psychotherapy. Week 4, question 4. How does yoga foster healing? Okay, fair question, because this is a course in yoga and trauma recovery, right? So what specifically can yoga do? Now that we know how to build a field of health, now that we know what trauma looks like and how it can show up, and we have some skills to respond to that, how can yoga specifically? So this is for all of you, for yoga teachers, mental health providers, people who are starting new programs, maybe in a recovery setting or some other inpatient mental health or school. Getting clear on this is very helpful and can even help you with grant writing and communicating to staff who maybe aren't on board or don't understand the powers of yoga. And even when I say the powers of yoga, it's very powerful. That doesn't mean it's a panacea or it's a cure-all. It can also be triggering, as I mentioned before, and I think it's important that we respect that. So how does it foster healing? My bottom line answer is integration, right? It helps us to process and integrate things and become a little more maybe self-aware, to move through some of the intensity that maybe we didn't have time to move through earlier in life. So the basic answer is integration. In this lecture, we talk about yoga philosophy, we talk about yoga practices, sequencing, pranayama, things that you can bring to different types of clients, to different manifestations of trauma, and to individuals and groups. So this lecture is really key, obviously, in understanding how to apply trauma work to yoga practice and how to tailor it to your needs, to your students' needs, to your group's needs. question 5. I really like the blank space slide. It's like, question 5. How do I create a trauma-informed space? My short answer, carefully. This is actually kind of a joke in my family when we would say something like, how do I change this light bulb? Very carefully. It's a way to respond that actually doesn't answer the question. So it's a little bit of a joke on my part, but it's actually has a lot of meaning and intention to it. And I'm going to explain that right now because it's not a dismissive response, as it would be in my family. How do I do this? It's carefully. With care. So I mean, not hypervigilantly, but with care, with attention, with responsiveness, with thought, with skill. What we cover in this lecture on trauma-informed yoga and creating a trauma-informed space is the environment, right? Choices like, these are hot topic issues in yoga and trauma recovery. Choices like, do I play music or not? Is there touch involved? How do I communicate and offer consent for touch? And I'm never going to tell you, well, I just did. I'm not going to tell you all or nothing things like always do this and never do that. So this is not a trauma-informed program that prescribes exactly how you should teach the class. We do have a curriculum coming and it will have suggestions, but for the purpose of this training, it's very important for me to respect your individual ability to choose, right? That's a theme we're going to discuss in the training. So you actually get to come to your own conclusions. I mean, not you get to, like you do, you will. Even if I tell you what to do, you will. And so that's the point. Rather than having people go off and sort of doing things secretly or maybe feeling shame, I shouldn't have done that, but I'm doing it anyway because I feel like it's right, but I'm not supposed to. We just cut that out by providing things for you to think about critically so that you can choose the best environment for your students. So we'll talk about an individual office setting, we'll talk about groups, and we'll talk about some of the really common factors that can make something feel either more or less safe, more or less triggering. And we'll go through those methodically. So that's our week 5, formerly week 4, now week 5. Is talking about trauma-informed principles and trauma-informed space. Question 6. What is dissociation? I get this question a lot from yoga teachers, from therapists, from friends. Some of you know my mother's actually a specialist in dissociative identity disorders. So I grew up meeting people who were experiencing pretty extreme levels of dissociation. So it's pretty well wired into the way that I understand people and I see the world. But I get why it's confusing because the answer is it's complicated and it's not one thing. But there are some ways that we can understand it. So this week's theme is advanced principles. So unless you're already an expert in dissociation, with a few people who have gone through this course are, this will be kind of a more advanced psychological lecture. There are some other principles that we thread through the course that are in this week that maybe aren't as complicated as dissociation, but I'm going to give you some tools to work with your own dissociation, number one. So to recognize some of the signs that the person you're with or the people you're with are dissociating, and to promote kind of shared awareness, promote really what yoga does, which is integration, but not with force, right? In a safe way. So I'll talk a little bit about dissociation and some other principles. And these are just, I think, more advanced and evolving concepts. And they also really fit with some of the wisdom we discuss in the yoga lecture. So it's great because as we go, there's a method, right, to how this is set up. As we go, you can start to see how everything ties together. So even though it looks like, oh, well, the yoga weeks are, week 4 and 5, it's the whole thing, but it all weaves in. You'll see. So bottom line there is, if you don't know what dissociation is, respect that, and just I'd encourage you to be open to learning. Question 7. Okay, well, what does the research say? I get this from my academians, my academicians, my academic friends. What does research say? Well, research says a lot of things, and you can flip through many research studies, some which find positive results, some which find neutral results. I haven't seen a lot, I don't think I've seen any that have negative impacts of yoga, but I have seen some that say, oh, it's the same as exercise, or it's the same as CBT. But there are a lot of new research studies coming out that support the skillful use of yoga practices. So overall, and we'll keep coming out with more research. There will continue to be more and more available as time goes on. But overall, research actually supports the skillful use of yoga practices. I'm going to go in this lecture, week 7, on research. I'm going to go through some recent research that speaks both to the philosophy of yoga and to the practice, and just kind of talk through the research, make sure it's available to you, offer you a link. Some studies you have to be either a student in college or pay a fee to access them, and some are open source. So I'll, best I can, provide you links to the open source ones. The ones that you have to pay for or go through a library, you can navigate that too. So we'll cover the research. There's also a research project this week, which involves doing a little research on your own to get yourself prepared for your next steps. Some of that, it might look like finding another research paper that's specific to your population or answers another question you're curious about. And some of it could also just be researching what's happening in your community, what you're wanting to offer next or when you finish this course. Question 8. Okay, I get all that, but now how do I do this? For a long time we've had one-to-ones as part of this training, and it's simply not sustainable anymore. But I love connecting with you guys, and I can't tell you how many people have on their closing call been like, I really love this lecture, I really appreciated that, but where do I so kind of like, where do I start? How do I get better at this? It's really common for there to be fear, nervousness, confusion, overwhelm at this stage. So this last week is a practicum week, and it's designed to give you structured opportunities to observe yourself and practice. So I'll give some structured options of how to complete a practicum, whether or not you have students or clients already. So there's options for everyone, and then to bring that back and reflect on it, right, and learn from it. And part of the reason I have this is just to give you your first go, so you can start going, you can start moving, right? Objects in motion stay in motion. We'll talk about that. Objects at rest stay at rest. But it's that moment where maybe you're a little bit scared to try something new, or it feels like there's a lot at stake based on all the information. So this week gives you the opportunity to practice. I'll also share some tools that people commonly ask for, just logistically in terms of getting started. And my short answer to this is practice, right? I've talked to some leaders in the field of trauma-informed yoga who have said, and this is absolutely true, none of us are perfect, and some of the biggest healing experiences have come from the repair that happens after a student experiences a trigger. So we are always learning. I am always learning. In fact, if I'm not learning, I get kind of like angsty. I really love to learn. And you learn that through doing and through showing up. And I think that can be the hardest part to accept, especially you're like, well, I got this online training and I'm going to be certified at some point, and then you've got to trust that what you have is enough to begin in whatever way is appropriate for you. So practice. So just to review the new and improved, the new and wonderful Y4T online training program. First week is a foundation of health. Second week is understanding trauma. Third week, somatic psychotherapy and the nervous system. Fourth week, yoga philosophy and practice. 5th week, trauma-informed principles. Week 6, advanced concepts. That's where dissociation fits in. Week 7, research review, and week 8, practicum assignments. So 8 weeks, essentially 2 months. Now, another important thing here, these are structured in order, and like I said, they interweave, but there's also a real intention in having there be space between each lecture. It helps you to digest and apply the information within yourself, to look at it in the world around you or in your work, and to integrate it more. Even research shows that sleeping in between learning helps you to, I like to say download, it's not download, but integrate what's been coming in. So there's a method to that as well. Within these 8 weeks, you'll have 2 opportunities to connect live with me and the community. We have group calls once a month. Those are included in an ongoing way for all students. At this point, I think we're guaranteeing a year of ongoing supportive group calls. As the program evolves and changes, you know, you're in the program and you're a part of the community, and you'll have the first option to join into these sort of newer elements. But for now, we've got this new 8-week program with 2 calls during the course. So if something comes up and you need personal support, or you have a technical question, or you didn't understand a slide, you can bring it there. You can also post it in our group, which is currently hosted on Facebook as a private group. So you can ask questions of each other. You can tag me if you have a question that is specific that you want a response from me. And it's a great place to connect. There's some amazing people in there. I mean, up until recently, I've spoken in depth to each person who's joined this course, and I can just tell you, you guys have hearts of gold. It's amazing. And I know a lot of you feel like, oh, I'm the only one doing this in the Czech Republic, or I'm the only one doing this in Arkansas. I don't think you will be for long, and you're not the only one doing it in the world. So yeah, keep on. That's my moment of encouragement for you. Keep on, and you're not alone. And these group calls, more than anything, I think I just want you guys to have the opportunity to see each other's faces, to hear each other's names. Hopefully one day we'll be able to connect in person, to have a conference or something. Not quite there yet, but at some point I would love to, you know, even meet some of you in person. I've seen you and I feel like I know you so well, but we haven't actually met. So in time. So this is the new course. This is the structure. Hopefully it makes more sense to you now, why it's ordered, why it's structured the way it is, what questions I'm responding to, and what I'm trying to help you with by kind of combing through this material. Some of these lectures are over an hour, under an hour, so it's not super fixed. I encourage you to block out 3 or 4 hours a week for the training video, and then you'll also receive a new benefit, which I'm super excited about for the new course, is a practice. So each week you'll get a short practice emailed to you on Wednesday, so that you're moving through actual yoga sequences and yoga principles for yourself. And this is mostly a self-care thing, but there's some modeling factors into it as well. So you'll get that midweek along with your reflection questions. All right, last things last, recent questions. These are the questions people have been asking me all summer. So I've been working on this book for 2 years. And so a lot of people are asking me, what, is it done? Is it done? When's the new book coming out? The answer as of current time is it's in editing stages. The title is Yoga for Trauma Recovery, and it's being published by Routledge. It will be released in spring of 2019. So that's an ish date. It might go a little forward or back depending on Routledge and the editorial process, but it's done, and I put a ton of work into it. So a lot of what came up through the book is also going into this new course, which is kind of part of the reason that that the new course is here and is existing. So that's that. It's coming in 2019. How can I get certified in trauma-informed yoga? So at this point, I have not heard of any academic programs that are offering a certification. I have taught in like UC Berkeley's extension program. That's not happening right now, but there are sort of different groups that are offering certifications in maybe working with vets or yoga for recovery. So I see this as a need because you guys have been asking me this question so much. So I recently launched a pilot program, and it went really well. So opening up applications, you will get an email about this year-long program. And so for this year, it's going to go 2018 through June 2019. If this is something you're interested in and you're a new student, just email me. We'll have kind of information up on the website, and yeah, more info we can connect you with. So it's a year-long certification through the Center for Yoga and Trauma Recovery. And the best part about that program is that your retreat, because there's a retreat with every year-long program, is in Maui. So the other question I've been getting is, help, I'm dying over here. Like, I feel like people are having a really hard time. There's a lot of really intense political things happening in the United States and around the world. There's a lot of suffering in the world. There are, things related to attachment that have been coming to light. There are things related to race and economics and gender and identity that many of them have roots in traumatic experiences, and there's healing happening. So with that, I like to frame it as a accelerated healing process, but we're kind of in the muck of it right now. With that, I think a lot of people are feeling drained. A lot of trauma therapists and people who hold healing space are feeling drained. So I've connected with Lumeria Maui, hosted retreats there for many years before, and they're always really stellar. So I'm hosting a yoga retreat for providers. So anyone who is caretaking or in mental health, yoga, holding healing space for other people. That's going to be in March of next year of 2019. So it might be right around when the book launches. Hopefully I can organize that. But information about that is coming soon. Everyone in the Y4T community, you get first access to this. I'm not even going to open it up. If it fills through this community, I'd be so happy with that, because I would love to just have you guys there in person. We already have the founding members. Everyone who went through the year-long pilot program will be there. Everyone who's in the year-long program for 2018-2019 will also be there as part of their program. So if you need a break, if you need to be fed and you need space held for you, I am happy to do that. And you also don't have to worry about me, because I'm going to planning to stay in Hawaii a few days after for my birthday, so that the islands can also feed me. So I think it's a win-win-win situation for you, for your students, for everyone involved, and I'm super excited about it. They have amazing food. There's a great view of the ocean. There's an amazing hot tub. I think it's a saltwater pool and tub and massage, like hammocks. It's incredible, and I always land on, when I go to Hawaii, I always feel so blessed. I land and it's like insta happy. I just feel like any negativity just drains, and I just feel insta happy. So hopefully you will feel that too. Maybe you felt it before, maybe not. But I love Maui and many of the Hawaiian Islands. Some of you know I danced hula for about 6 years. So I'll show you my moves at the retreat. Okay, how do I join the new course? Current students, check your email in the Facebook group. You have a unique link to sign up and make sure you're in. New students, go to howwecanheal.com/Y4T. We've got the schedule on there, the enrollment. There are pre-training videos we're going to release soon that cover some important material to prep you for this training, or really for any training in trauma or yoga and trauma and mental health. They'll set you up on a positive path. All right, check. 8 most common questions and answers, themes of the updated Y4T online training program, and 3 recent questions and answers. That's it. Love being here with you guys and sharing with you. We'll have a little bit of time for questions. I'm actually going to stop the recording there. We'll have some time to connect and Q&A between all of us. So for those of you watching the recording, I will see you on the next group call. Much love and namaste.